Hello. Hello, everyone. I want to make sure we get us all in here first. I want to make sure I can see. Make sure that everybody is present. Awesome. Fantastic. We are all here. Welcome, friends. Welcome to the Raising Good Gamers panel. We are discussing youth safety and diversity and also what each of us are doing individually and collectively, like in our organizations of what we're doing to fulfill those ends and those initiatives. I'm here with some amazing, amazing human beings. But before I tell you who they are, let me tell you a little bit about Raising Good Gamers. So Raising Good Gamers is an initiative focused on cross-sector strategies for raising a kinder, more civically engaged, pro-social generation of players. So this moderated conversation, of course, we are members of the advisory board for Raising Good Gamers, and we're going to talk about the ways that RGG is partnering with young people to elevate and amplify their role in shaping the culture and climate of online play. The idea that transforming the current system into one that is safe, diverse, equitable, and inclusive requires a number of different and sometimes competing strategies. And also we're going to be talking about like different examples of research practice partnerships that are helping to drive that initiative. So these lovely humans who are going to be talking about the amazing things that they're doing are, I'm not sure what the order is on your screen, but we've got Jill King from Cartoon Network. Awesome. We've got Jenny Wu from Understood, and we've got Monica Arembide. Did I say it right? From Maven Youth. I'm gonna do, Liz, I'm practicing rolling my R's just for you. I promise I am. And Natasha Miller, of course, from Blizzard. And I feel like we've done this like several times like before. Maybe we haven't, but I feel like that I've seen y'all several times this summer, and it just continues to warm my heart. So what we're gonna do for folks, I want folks to like introduce themselves, maybe talk about 5 to 6 minutes really about the things that you're doing, the kinds of initiatives that you're focused on, especially as it relates to that broader theme of youth safety and diversity. And then the order that we're going to go in is just going to go like in alphabetical order. So if it's all good, go ahead and kick us off, Monica. Thank you so much.
Hola. Hello, everyone. I am Monica Arravide, if you know how to roll your R's. And I go by he, she, mix it up. You can't go wrong. And I'm with Maven Youth. I'm the CEO and founder of this amazing nonprofit organization. We're a national organization. We serve queer youth. So our whole goal is to really bring LGBT youth in the fold of being part of the digital landscape, right? So when we talk about tech careers, when we talk about gaming development and all those aspects, we want to ensure that we're creating a safe space for all queer youth to have an opportunity to explore careers in tech in a safe manner. And so how do we do that? So we've been doing this for this summer alone has been 7 years of offering free summer tech camps across the nation. And the past 2 years have been all virtual because of the pandemic. But with that said, our camps are led by youth. So typically kind of the pathway into the work we do is a young person attends one of our summer tech camps where they learn to build a video game with a social justice mindset and meet amazing LGBT queer folks in the industry. And so we pop along to other tech companies and gaming companies and meet people behind the scenes. But a lot of our camp is really led by young people. So typically a young person comes to our camp, but who they're seeing and who they're experiencing in regards to game development is other LGBT youth. So we have a leadership model within our organization. So you see me now, but typically it is a young person who's speaking on behalf of Maven Youth because we really believe in that. So our summer camps are free. They're 2 weeks. One cool thing we do is level up our under-resourced young folks. So LGBT youth are typically a high range percentage within system-impacted young people. So it could be foster care, it could be juvenile detention, it could be immediate levels of where they're being impacted by systems. And so we ensure that we provide laptops for queer youth who are in some aspects being impacted. So we want to make sure that we do our best to try to level the playing field in regards to having tech access. So with that said, some of the cool things that we're doing in regards to raising good gamers is because within our camps, we talk about a lot of the benefits and the challenges of technology. So there's good and bad in regards to game development, as well as the tech impact on career lives. And so we spend a lot of time in our camp. Yes, they learn to build a video game. Yes, they learn how to code, but more so, we want them to come with the lens of, with as best of a lens of social justice lens, and thinking about the games they're creating and tech tools that are being created. And so raising good gamers, one of our projects that we're trying to work with Games for Change with is to bring this raising good gamers to all LGBT centers, to have them think about creating kind of this initiative of awareness of impact. Because as you would know, a large percent of our queer young folks who are playing games are being impacted by the fact that they have to hide their sexual identity. They have to use gender neutral screen names, right? They try to block and mute other players in the process because they're feared that they're going to be outed or be harassed. Or they play a lot of the games offline because that's a safer aspect of gameplay. So what does it mean to be a good steward in the aspects of gaming in a safe space? And so we want to create dialogue within our queer youth to figure out what that is and what are the toolkits that need to be created to ensure that they have the voice, not only the ability to navigate in the gaming sphere, but also have the tools of knowing how do I create change in this aspect alongside other gamers. So we are pairing up with Games for Change to be able to push our initiative with raising good gamers within our organization. I'll be happy to share a lot more about Maven Youth and our summer camps and gaming dev workshops and all the cool stuff we do. But I think our panel members have some really cool other programs, so I'm going to hand it off. Thank you.
Thanks, Monica. And before Jill speaks, I want to make sure that if folks have questions, please use the Q&A function that's to the right of your screen. It should be where you have the option of chat, polls, people, Q&A. Please put your questions there. And if it can be answered, like just while we're texting, we'll be sure to do that. But, we can also reserve it, for the last probably about 10, 12 minutes of our conversation. Then we'll get to your question. Okay. Go ahead, Jill.
Thank you. And Monica, that's super inspiring work. Hi, everybody. I'm Jill King. I lead marketing at Cartoon Network. A little bit of background on Cartoon Network. We're in over 410 homes globally. We are a global, 410 million, homes globally. We are a global brand. We have 3 animation studios. And really what we try to do is we try to use our reach and relevance for good. We know how important it is to this young audience, this young Gen Z audience, to see themselves reflected in the media that they watch. So representation is critical to really, I think, any brand working in the kid space. And we really try to reflect that. We say behind the pencil and in front of the pencil. We have amazing shows like Steven Universe and the Powerpuff Girls, which was the original girl power brand so many years ago. Teen Titans Go, We Bear Bears, and other shows that really reflect our audience and the themes that matter most to them. So with that, what we have known is over the past 10 years, pretty consistently, bullying has ranked high on the issue that matters most to kids and parents from a social perspective. So we got into the bullying prevention space about 10 years ago. We've been going 10 years strong. We fielded a first of its kind nationally represented survey on cyberbullying in partnership with the Cyberbullying Research Center, which helped inform some new work and how we ultimately evolved our campaign to really focus on cyberbullying. And what we aim to do is stop bullying before it starts and equip kids with tools and ideas for what they can do to create inclusive environments and communities wherever they are, whether that's in the physical world or in the digital world. So we are super thrilled that we launched our Play Positive campaign yesterday, and we partnered with Raising Good Gamers to really advise us. Like, we know what we know and we know what we don't know. So it's really important for us to work with those subject matter experts who can help advise us on messaging, on ideas to give to kids. What we bring to the table are the relevant characters that kids love and the storytelling, and then we really lean into partners like Raising Good Gamers to advise us on messaging.
Thank you for that, Jill. We'll hop on over to Natasha.
Thank you. I am so honored to be included on this panelist with these amazing, inspiring women. And so for me, I am a senior research scientist on the Player Interactions and Trust team at Blizzard Entertainment. And basically, I lead a program called Behavior by Design. And our goal is to encourage and foster respectful, safe, and inclusive environments for all of our players and our communities. And through that, that's led me to work on the executive steering committee of the Fair Play Alliance, which is mostly what I'm going to focus on here today. So the Fair Play Alliance was developed in 2017 as a global community of practice where gaming professionals and companies work together to develop and share best practices to build healthy online communities and player interactions in games. And we currently have well over 200 gaming companies involved in our alliance. So we really do have that community of practice happening. And we have so many different companies that everyone's experts in their own right. And so by working together, we're really trying to move forward and creating healthy player dynamics. And this is where the systems in the game all work together to reduce disruptive behavior and increase healthy interactions so that we're not only addressing harm after it occurs, but how do we proactively build and create positive change in our products and systems from their ideation? And so some of the things that we've started working on to put out there is the disruption and harms in online gaming framework, which Raising Good Gamers was actually one of the people to help us vet this as we were putting it out. It is currently on our website, so you can see the framework in its entirety, the taxonomy, and that can be used, the classifications of the different disruptions and harms that are happening. That was a collaboration with the Anti-Defamation League as well, and included hundreds of developers, specialists, gaming industry, academia, civil society to actually help make this a very comprehensive piece. And in addition, we have a few resources that you can take and immediately use at your studios for addressing the behavior landscape, planning and building a reporting system, and community management guidelines. So those are all available right now on our website. And someone just asked for it, so I just pasted it in the chat. So that's one of the things. The thing that we currently have in progress right now is a child safety initiative, which is a collaboration with Google and the Fair Play Alliance. And it's about understanding child safety in the gaming space. And we've had a series of work tables specifically around diversity, equity, and inclusion intersections among child safety. And we have several more roundtables planned. So it will still be a while before we actually have a comprehensive piece like the framework, but that is in progress. And if you're currently a member or if you sign up to be a member, we will likely be inviting you to some of those roundtables. And then just additionally, next week's GDC, and we do have the Fair Play Summit there where you can get even more resources and information specifically about some of these initiatives. The framework, we actually have 2 fireside chats about. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you, Natasha. All right, Jenny, you can round us out. Appreciate you all.
Thanks, Kishana. It's so wonderful to be a part of the inspiring work from you ladies. So thank you so much for including me. I'm Jenny Wu. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Understood. Understood's a social impact organization, and our mission is to shape a better world for those who have learning disabilities, which we call differences. So learning and thinking differences are anything from ADHD to dyslexia. You might have heard them referred to as neurodiversities or invisible disabilities. For us, the work that we do, we reach millions of families every year, including young adults, and we provide all sorts of resources, tools, communities to really help them through critical points in their life so that they can thrive and build the life skills they need to succeed. For us, our work with young adults particularly is twofold. One, we know that, young adults with learning and thinking differences can be at a disadvantage. A lot of learning and thinking differences are often stigmatized and overlooked. And so what we want to do first is we want to help them build the kind of life skills that allow them to be independent and resilient and thrive. One of the critical moments in their life journey is, of course, finding their first job. So a lot of our resources are concentrated on kind of getting them through, kind of that critical life stage. So we have tons of content that is expert written, expert vetted at understood.org, if anyone wants to go there. We also, just launched a beta version of our community app, which is so far for parents of individuals with learning and thinking differences, but will soon, expand to individuals to allow them a safe space to talk about anything that's learning and thinking difference related. So it allows people to really not feel alone, given that there are 70 million people in the US with a learning and thinking difference. That's actually 1 in 5 individuals. So we want to really raise awareness of that prevalence and provide resources from the app to the site to also our podcasts that are out, called In It, and other podcasts we'll be launching to really raise awareness of what it takes to kind of build thriving adults. On the other hand, we also, we're looking to shape the world to make it more inclusive for those with learning and thinking difference. One of the ways we do that is through our partnerships and through our accessibility and usability work. So when we think about accessibility, usability, it goes beyond compliance. So it's not just the ADA compliance that is the bare minimum, particularly, focused on physical disabilities, but we encourage, our partners to think about what it means to build products and build games that are inclusive for those with learning and thinking differences. So we lean on, raising good gamers. We have partnerships with organizations such as Eye to Eye to really help us shape the world and, raise awareness about what it means to be more inclusive of 20% of the population. So we're really excited for some of the things we have going on, and yeah, we're excited to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you all so much for sharing that. As you all were talking, first off, I think I was reminded about how wonderful and beautiful collaborations are, right? Because each of you just come from like different perspectives and addressing a lot of these like pressing issues. So I guess I wanted to ask like that first question. And, Jill, if you don't mind, we'll start with you, because I know you did mention, specifically like talking about like bullying. So why is like when we think about like pressing issues, why is it that, bullying is the thing that you felt the need to like tackle right now? And what does that like look like in like, the initiatives that you all are embarking upon?
Mm-hmm. I think it's really, as I mentioned, it still remains the top social issue, depending on what survey you look at for both kids and parents. But I think what's interesting, having been in the work and really committed to this for over 10 years, is how we really had to expand the work that we were doing. We have really amazing, tried and true messaging and tools that we give to kids on like how to speak up. Making sure that you go to a trusted adult. But when we think about, in the wake of George Floyd's murder and Black Lives Matter, how can we be there for the Black community and specifically Black kids when they may experience bullying and how it may be different for that community and like really trying to unpack systemic racism for kids. We are also, you know, embarking on programs to support the AAPI community as well, and how that community may experience bullying in a different way. So like really understanding how individuals may experience bullying, whether it's a bystander or, you know, maybe the person who is bullied, and really kind of understanding how it impacts them and their community. So, and then cyberbullying, which we launched our cyberbullying campaign yesterday, you know, in the wake of COVID, knowing that, you know, kids were really going, more kids were going to digital communities, gaming communities for their social interaction and spending more time, they were more likely to experiencing bullying within that, within those communities. So I think for us, like it's evolved, and we just have to make sure that we're really representing the kids that we stand for, right? Like every couple of years we get a new crop of kids. So every generation is a little different, and we really have to make sure that we are representing each individual kid. You know, I'm very proud to work for this brand because we really feel like we create a place where kids are comfortable to kind of bang to their own drum and be who they are, and that's what we stand for. So we really have to make sure that we understand where they're coming from and meeting them where they are, and that's ever changing. So that's what gets me excited about the work that we do. And I honestly think we're just scratching the surface in how we can support kids.
That's fantastic. You know, and also, you know, Monica, you know, Natasha, Jenny, you know, also chime in too and talk about that. Cause, you know, I'm thinking about, you know, just something that Jill just said about like how, you know, every generation, they have different things, you know, might be kind of like, you know, similar, but, you know, there are all kinds of things that are like, you know, pressing and prominent, like for youth. And so you have to like prioritize, you know, how you know, what your interventions are, what your focus is on. So kind of talk a little bit, you know, if you don't mind, you know, Monica, you know, go ahead, you know, and talk about how you prioritize like those kinds of things, like to address like the, you know, the most pressing issues.
Yeah, for our organization, we do beyond just gaming. So when we talk about pressing things, it could be about digital applications and other things that are directly related beyond just gaming. But I'll keep the conversation because this is Games for Change and the gaming element. For us, part of our workshop, we actually talk about the history of gaming within the LGBT video game characters. And unfortunately, we can even name today some games that are very, unfortunately, really hatred versions of our characters. I wouldn't even say stereotypes, because stereotypes gives it a grace of it. While I think nowadays, I think characters are really intentional about being hurtful. So I don't think it's beyond labeled it as stereotype characters. So we talk about that in our camp, about where the history of gaming and the character buildings of our identities. And some of it has changed drastically and some of it has not, right? And yes, we have a lot of more queer identities in gaming that youth can look towards. But the AAA industry is being selective in what types of games they put out. And it's more so indie games that youth can feel have some resonate with and aspects of our characters in games. So what has changed probably the consoles have definitely changed. The people building it maybe have changed. But one thing that I'm really excited about is the indie movement, about how we're able to give the tools for young people to build the games that they want to build. And in our camp, they have to build an LGBT a queer game about their identities, and it's so moving to see the types of games they build, because some of the challenges that they're facing are still the challenges I faced as a young person, about coming out, about being accepted in love. Am I going to find someone? Am I going to find community? Am I going to be whole as an adult, right? Those are the same kind of battling questions as a young person. So it had then and it has now, right? And so it's really beautiful to see some of the games that get created in the aspects of who they're still asking the same questions. And the other thing I want to share out is the demographics of LGBT youth are still the same in regards to me as a child, as in regards to the suicide rate, the drug and alcohol abuse, right? The harassment and bullying. It's literally the same. Everything we think, oh, we see all these characters in video games, we see characters on television, and think that as a whole community, we have moved forward light years in so many aspects. I would say yes to that. And the same breath, when you look at data, it's still showing the same data, right? And so you have to ask yourself, well, why hasn't things changed in regards to addiction and being kicked out of your home and all those aspects that a queer young person is still struggling with? Is really interesting.
Natasha, Jenny, do you want to chime in and chat a little bit about, how you all approach, like, the pressing issues and, how you prioritize, what you focus on and what you have to key in on?
Sure. Yeah, I'm so happy to hear you guys talk about bullying. We found for kids with learning and thinking differences, they're actually, 30% more likely to be bullied in school. They're 3 times more likely to drop out of school, and they're actually twice as likely to be unemployed. So there's just an exacerbation of, that effect that cascades throughout life. And that's why, we kind of focus on some of the critical socio-emotional life skills that can really, have lasting effects in their life. So, games can be such a positive solution for that. Just the gamification, the reward-seeking nature of like getting good at something. The idea that you can try, like you can, as a player, you can die many times with no consequence. Just like knowing that you can try and fail multiple times are such good lessons. And we just want to kind of raise awareness and let, developers and publishers know there's actually really small tweaks that you can make that you're probably already doing to make games more accessible and usable for kids with learning and thinking differences. Things like kind of reminders or things that help with like memory issues or executive function, like just having, like in Minecraft Dungeons, having a map that can be accessed on screen so you can see where you are, thinking about just little reminders here and there that can make it more likely for the kids to stay with the game. It's not about, I think what we want to get across is it's not about making the game easier. It's actually making it more accessible and usable. And when we do it for, kids with learning and thinking differences, it actually benefits everyone. So that if I could leave everyone with one message, is that, helping the 1 in 5 kind of helps all of us.
Natasha?
Yeah, and from our perspective, when we were putting together the framework and things like that, we had a lot of questions about how things affected children specifically, and we realized that the amount of information that is out there as far as children in the gaming space is pretty limited, and generally children are all sort of bucketed into one bucket: children, right? Under this age. The age might be slightly different depending on the company, but it tends to pit them all together, which is part of why we wanted to do the child safety initiative, so that we can better understand buckets within that how do different ages, different ethnicities, different backgrounds of children affect how they experience these things. And we're just kind of scratching the surface, but we think that it's important to understand where we're doing well, align on what the problem spaces are or what the unknown spaces are, so that we can move forward on potential solutions, their effectiveness. Even if the solution is just to do more research in these specific areas, we're definitely approaching it from a point of view of, we don't know what we don't know, so let's put together everything we know and the spaces where there seem to be gaps. And that's where we're working on at the moment.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. And it's a reminder for the audience, folks, if you have questions, feel free to put those into the Q&A. They might get lost in the chat, but I'll also go through the chat just in case you do find your question in the chat area. Another question, I was thinking about, whenever I heard I believe, somebody mentioned like the stats of like how things haven't changed that much. Monica, I believe, you were talking about, those stats related to our, LGBTQ youth. But also, some of you folks have been like in the game for like a while, right? So you've seen trends and patterns. You've seen things like, kind of ebb and flow and change, maybe progress some, maybe not enough. But so think about, the kinds of things that how you're approaching a lot of these initiatives and how you're approaching these kinds of things. What have been like some of the biggest challenges? I don't want to focus on like the negative things. So kind of talk about like the challenges, but also like you meant, discuss some of like the highlights you see, like, the partnerships, for instance, with like Raising Good Gamers. Of course, I hold RGG close and dear to my heart. But just think about, how do you like approach some of these initiatives? What are some of the challenges if there's like old ways of, thinking, antiquated ways of thinking and approaching it? What are some of like the new energies and new synergies that are there? Can you all talk about like some of the or best practices? You can think about this question as like a best practice that you've seen of like, collaborating and approaching like some of these some of these issues, like so we can move forward, and hopefully one day Monica will be talking about, like some better numbers. I hope so. We remain hopeful. Go ahead. Anybody that wants to tackle that one. Come on, Monica. I know you've got some thoughts about that because you were shaking your head. Yeah, well, go ahead and talk. Just talk then.
I'm trying to take a back seat to help carve space because I'm a talker.
No way. Front and center, please, Monica.
Well, as someone who collaborates with young people all the time and thinking about how they see the world and how they want to create programming, I think that's the biggest learning I have is within my youth leaders themselves, is trusting that they know the answer because they themselves are being impacted directly, right? So I can make an assumptions of what youth want and need, but it's coming out of the mouths of young people themselves is really powerful. But what you're getting at is collaborations with other organizations and other initiatives. And so for me, we collaborate with LGBT centers across the United States. So when we go to a new city to provide a free summer camp, we're always in partnership with the local community that is serving that community. Because we're national, we can't assume that we understand all the needs of a queer young person in Texas versus California or New York City. So we always lean on that negotiation and that partnership with the people that are up front and center working with the youth in that neighborhood or within that community. So it's very important to take the lead of the organization or the collaborative that is being impacted the most, right? And so we lean on our LGBT centers to help guide us, right? So we have a formula of how we do our camps, but more so we need to learn and grow from our partner who is in collaboration with of us providing the programming. So we get very excited when we get national organizations like Games for Change and other organizations that are on a national level, because then there is a larger breadth of collaboration. So it's not just with the national organization, but then the local front as well, right? And so there's always, I always lean on that. I'm not the expert. I always tell youth to always share when they train, we're not the experts. I'm not the expert of speaking about LGBT youth and gaming. I know a lot about it, but I'm not the expert. And so I'm always in the space of eager to want to learn from others. And so that's the step that I put forward all the time when I think of collaboration with other organizations.
Yeah, I have to echo that sentiment about bringing in experts because we can't know everything. The reason we're so proud of the framework that we currently have out is because we did bring in literally hundreds of specialists and experts in all of these different aspects from different gaming companies who work on this, like Blizzard, I've helped on that, but also from academia, from civil society. We brought in the Anti-Defamation League. They were a huge collaborator on this, and making sure that we got all of these people who really have these expertise that we don't have makes the final product so much better and so much more effective and useful ultimately. And it's the same thing that we're doing with the child safety initiative, that we're taking our time to get it done. We brought Raising Good Gamers in on the framework. We're doing the same steps for this to make sure that the final product does have this expert insight. And I think at the gaming level, we do that as well. Like at Blizzard, when we're looking at adding accessibility options and different things, we've partnered with Able Gamers, which is a company that they have experts of people who actually use these accessibility features to make sure that they're being built in a way that is actually useful for the community. So I echo Monica's sentiments that absolutely understanding that you're not an expert in everything and getting those experts where it makes sense is extremely important in having a very good final product.
I think that makes sense, and anybody, Jenny, Jill, did you all want to, speak specifically like to maybe why you partnered with certain partners or why you partner with like Raising Good Gamers or why you approach things the way that you approach them?
I think those were great answers. I think first and foremost, Monica, what you said, which I will reiterate, and how we operate at Cartoon Network is listening to kids, right? Like elevating their voice, listening to kids. And then as Natasha already addressed, like making sure you are collaborating with experts. I think what was so amazing about the Raising Good Gamers is they not only had the expertise, but they also are a wonderful partner for us to hear directly from kids within gaming environments. So then when we developed our content and our tips and tools, we know we were coming from an authentic place and speaking in the same way that kids speak, and referencing experiences and gameplay the way that are most relevant to them.
Yeah, I've been encouraged in talking to kids and young people that, there's so much, more comfortable embracing difference as part of their identity, all difference, they identify with with being dyslexic or ADHD, and they understand that that's not a disability and it's not a weakness, but it's part of who they are, and it actually allows them to be unique in the things that they do. And so I'm super inspired by, this just a new generation of kids that aren't afraid to ask for what they need and some of the accessibility features, also encouraged by, some of the bigger companies and particularly tech companies and players, such as Microsoft coming out like really strong with their chief accessibility officer and the work that they're doing that goes beyond, compliance. For us, I'll bring up one of the challenges, for us, we try to also, on the other hand, using, through gaming, we want to build life skills that translate into, independence and the workplace. I think one of the challenges is, we find young people still don't want to disclose their learning and thinking difference in the workplace, unless it comes to a performance issue or something like that. And to us, that feels like there's much more work to do there. We're really kind of, I think, fortunate that we're partnering with, corporations such as Expedia, Chan Zuckerberg Institute, small businesses, to be more inclusive with not only their products, but their hiring practices, so that, we can start to create the culture in a workplace that will embrace difference and allow people to kind of disclose whatever they want about themselves. To us, differences are everyone on this, everything that everyone's talked about here. So that's been one of the things that we're focused on going forward.
That's awesome. I know we are approaching probably about 10 or 12 minutes out from the ending of this session. So one of the questions before I got into the Q&A, I did want to ask if anybody wanted to discuss, like, those, what are you looking forward, to, like, in the future programming, or even, I know one of the questions that I love being asked is like, if you just had an abundance of like money, like a big, unlimited budget, unlimited like resources, unlimited like human capital and all that stuff, like what would you and your company be doing? Like what kinds of like big questions would you be asking? What kind of problems like would you be solving? Like, can we do just like that big thinking kind of exercise, just briefly, if you will? Go ahead,
Sure.
Natasha.
I guess I'll go first on this one. So from the Fair Play Alliance perspective, a lot of our goals are to bring that community of practice together to put out best practices. So we would definitely be focused on best practices. And I believe one of the big spaces for us that we really want to understand is how to really encourage pro-social behaviors to happen in games, sort of preventing a lot of this disruptive behavior from even occurring, because even if you have really effective penalization, it only occurs once. It still affects whoever that one time occurred to. So the idea of really being able to push forward and how do we get those pro-social behaviors from the beginning is a huge area that we want to look at. And we want to look at this across the intersections, children obviously being one of our big focuses right now, but also just, even in adults, understanding how the different ethnicities they come from, the different backgrounds, the different genders, the different abilities, like all of the things that make us different and unique also affects how we go about doing this. And being able to do that big intersectional study, if I had all the time and all the money, like that's definitely where I think that would be good for us to bring our community of practice together to start to understand.
I'll jump in. I think big picture from my side in the industry that I'm in is that any human can turn on the TV or a laptop, wherever they consume their media, and see themselves reflected. I think from a representation standpoint, there's been amazing work that's been done. And from an industry perspective, there's so much more content out there and diversity of content out there that does represent different dimensions of people's diversity. But when I think about the work that Jenny's doing at Understood and thinking about learning differences, I think that there still is, so much work to be done. And I just think for me, it's like any person can go and see themselves as a norm reflected in the media and content that they consume.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Jill. Yeah, hopefully we could partner and collab on, something Cartoon Network related. But yeah, for me as kind of the product nerd who's worked with game developers and computer vision engineers, I hope that we could collaborate to, build in kind of inclusive best practices right from the start and not necessarily retrofit, whether it's, the UX on the screen or in consoles or controls. The idea that, like, I think, hopefully 10, 20 years from now, a lot of the things we're talking about is just standard. It's not something that we have to think about. It's the same way as, like, hopefully we don't really have to think about ramps to get into buildings anymore. It's just something that we take for granted. And so that's kind of what I'm excited about, is to partner with more, developers and publishers to build games, inclusive from the start.
Monica, anything you wanted to chime in and add for us?
Yeah, I'll try to make it short and sweet. I'm a nonprofit leader leading a nonprofit organization. So dream big means big money for me. So the more fundraising I could do, great. But the thing that I would love is we work with a lot of high school youth, and I wish we could go younger, working with queer youth. And unfortunately right now, because society is in which where a middle schooler is actually going through social emotional pieces of what it means to be LGBT, that they're not in the space to think about even career competencies or coding competencies or gaming competencies. They're just looking about how to bring their full selves into the space. So I always get asked the question of, hey, go younger, but that narrows my demographics of reaching young people that are at the space to feel safe to want to now start thinking about gaming, game development. So if I had money, I wish that I could have my youth leaders keep inspiring younger generations. So hopefully, in a few number of years that we can actually start working with middle schoolers, because they're at the space of wanting to learn about game development versus, am I going to be kicked out of my house or be beaten at school, right? Like, so I would love to, if I could dream big, that's what I would hope for.
That's beautiful. I love that so
Yeah.
much.
That's also the age, Monica, that they start to think about their identity or become aware of their identity, right? And a lot of them, our user journey work mirrors a lot of the kind of journey of coming out. So it's very interesting that like the childhood development research shows that, you know, that like middle school age is so crucial to like trying on new identities, figuring out who you are, you know, and that's such a crucial time for any kid.
And then you have to even think about like the barriers that will be pushed, you know, that will resist you trying to do that. Because I know I was trying to talk about like trans identity in my kids like elementary school, and they were just like, no way, that's off limits. I'm like, why is that like off limits, you know? So I'm just thinking about, as much as we even want to do that, you know, there are like structures in place that will just really completely stop us, you know, from doing so. Well, won't stop us. In some spaces might stop us, but the train is moving, and so hopefully people like jump onto the train that's moving, because we are moving ahead. Absolutely. So we just have like a few minutes. I think there's a few questions in the QA. I see there was a couple questions related to like VR, you know, about, you know, like what's like the age appropriate, you know, kind of like content like for VR, or if like cartoons, you know, I think I saw a question somewhere. If maybe this was for you, Jill, if like we'll ever have like VR cartoon experiences. Did anybody want to talk a little bit about, you know, like the things that they may be doing in the VR arena?
Yeah, I think VR is an exciting new place. I think we're space. I think we're still learning. We do have a couple of VR experiences. One that comes to mind is Adventure Time. So I can follow up with more information about that. But I think it's exciting because I think it's an opportunity for fans to like really become a part of that cartoon and interact in the world that they love so much. So I think it's super exciting, and we've been experimenting.
Awesome. There's also another question here. Well, someone's wanting to ask about, I remember, Monica, you mentioned something about like funding. And I know there was a question in here about how do you fund, you know, projects? Like, where does funding come from? Especially if you don't have like a, you know, it's like a boss you can ask, like, hey, I need this money for a budget. Like, how do you do that? How do you fund these projects? Or even folks that are in like, you know, more corporate spaces. How do you get folks like buy-in to, you know, fund like a lot of these projects that you're working on?
Mine's pretty easy to answer. So our funding actually comes from the tech industry. So we have gaming companies that give money back to us, tech companies that want to be part of and supporting this project. So I would say 99% of our funding actually is rooted in other gaming companies and our tech sector.
So for the folks who are on that other end, I'm so sorry, Natasha, my bad. Go ahead. But I wonder, for the folks who are on the other end, how do you talk your boss into giving money to folks like Monica?
I'm going to talk from the Fair Play Alliance side. I don't have a great answer for the other side, but the Fair Play Alliance is actually a volunteer organization. So we're not nonprofit or anything yet, which means that anytime we want to do a project or a research or something, we actually partner with another company or several companies who are also interested in this space, and we get our funding League, and them plus a few other companies in the Fair Play Alliance actually funded a lot of that work. And for instance, the Anti-Defamation League Design House actually took care of, once it came out to be published, the designs and everything and what it would look like for us. And then same with the Child Safety Initiative I mentioned. Google is the main collaborator on that one. So a lot of the funding comes from that. So we, as a volunteer organization, actually have to find those collaborations and sort of get our funding either from our members contributing to a specific project or from the main collaborators on those projects.
Awesome. Fantastic. We've wound down. We've got like 2 minutes left, and I don't know if they're just like going to kick us all out, but I don't want that to happen. So we will just start to wind down now. Thank you all, Natasha, Jill, Monica, Jenny, for being a part of this amazing panel. Thank you to the folks, from Raising Good Gamers for always being amazing, for, participating in some of the best practices and collaborating with folks like, to answer some of these pressing questions and to also be like on the front lines of you know, like being the example and being like a model for what it looks like to do a lot of this work. And thank you for the audience members. You know, for folks, you know, there's still conversations happening in the chat. You know, so I want to make sure that we are mindful and attentive to those kinds of things. But for everybody, you know, who shared space and shared time with us, thank you all so much. We appreciate you. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.